Welcome to the Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here with us today, of course. We are coming to you live, as we always do, from World Headquarters in Middletown, Connecticut, home of Albert Murfwiffle, who is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having grown the onion with the most layers of skin to peel. My guest today is a gentleman named John Dunia. We were talking before we went live that while John and I have known each other for a while, we've interacted infrequently and never one-on-one. So this is an absolute treat for me. And John, welcome to you, sir.
Welcome, Mark, and it's certainly a treat for me as well. Thank you very much.
I want to get into what you do in your work as the shame doctor, how and why you do that, and what may have shaped some of the experiences that led you to do that. But I also want to ask you, again, before we went live, you said something about your being in sales. I didn't know that. What do you do in sales?
Oh, I actually work for two different companies, and they're both construction related. And
so kind of like a manufacturer's rep or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, interesting. So I'm just going to pursue that a little. So what do you sell?
Well, with the one company I work with does windows and doors for custom homes in Las Vegas, and the other company does decorative glass. It's kind of hard to explain. Restaurant booth dividers. Well, we can do things like glass staircases, handrails. We do mirror for casinos. So I do. It's all kinds of really cool decorative stuff, and I typically work with interior designers on this.
I make it my mission to learn something new every day, and it's only about 2 or 3 minutes after 1 Eastern, and I've already fulfilled my mission.
Oh, good. I'm glad I could help.
Thank you very much. On a complete side note, given what you do, I may want to connect you at some point with my wife, who's an interior decorator.
Oh, okay, cool.
As a matter of fact, she's at a project at a condominium building here in Connecticut right now. So I want to come back to this whole shame thing. I want to say that I think there are precious few people who've managed to come through their childhoods without trauma of some kind or another. And as I've thought about this show, and as I've thought about the work you do, I would be willing to bet that shame is a fairly consistent element in that trauma. Would you agree with that?
The only reason I wouldn't agree is because it was much more than consistent. It was a major part of my upbringing. Yes.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Would you be willing to share any of that with us?
Oh, sure. You won't. When it comes to shame, there's very little that I won't share, because I feel like my story helps other people. And so when I say something, no matter, even if it doesn't make me look that great, I share it because people can empathize with that, and they can understand that, wow. And, and some things that may seem grave to me, other people might not think are that critical. But, we all have those things in life where we think, oh, people are going to think this, and it's not really that big of a deal, or vice versa. So, yeah, shame was a big part of my life. The problem was that I never realized it until my first marriage began to break down. I had no idea that it had the grip on me. It was influencing my decisions without me even knowing it. And I first want to start off by saying I got lucky to find a fantastic therapist that gave me the tools to come to this understanding. Because no matter what we do, in my opinion, any kind of healing things, we have to figure it out. You can have the best therapist in the world, whoever you consider, and they can tell you everything you need to know. But if it doesn't become real to you, you can't do it for them. That's not healing. That's acting. It's not all those kinds of things. Did you want to start with any particular question, or you just want me to start from the beginning, or?
Yeah, I would be happy to have you start from the beginning. First, I want to pick up on something you've already said. You said that you're willing to share some things that don't make me seem that great. And I just want to share with you that among the things that I've been learning at this late stage in life is that there is strength and power in vulnerability. So I will just share with you, because you said something about therapist. I am in the 26th year of working with the same psychiatrist.
Wow, congratulations.
So thank you. So amen to you for that. So please, yes, go ahead.
Well, a lot of the shame that I developed or was influenced was religion based. I was involved in an organization for many years that was pretty good at using shame to make us feel bad about who we are. Now, I'm not on here to bash religion. I'm not on. Everybody is allowed to have their own thoughts about it. I would only share my experience. It was very a very conservative way of looking at the Bible. I mean, we would look at pretty much every other religion, and they didn't hold up to us. So it didn't even matter if you were a Christian. As I remember and I recall, that pretty much everybody, it was like pretty much our religion was going to be the only one that was in heaven. And when you're in that position, a good way for control is being able to use shame, having people feel bad about who they are. You know, Mark, if you don't mind, I want to back up and start with what is shame, because so many people don't really understand the depth of it. And people will say in a sentence, wow, I have all this guilt and shame. I want to stop and say, hold on a second. Do you know the difference between guilt and shame? Because people, oftentimes, if you say, hey, describe guilt, they'll put the word shame in there. And although there is some crossover, and I do want to kind of explain the difference. This is sort of a generic and is more personal based. Now, a psychologist or maybe even somebody who's into words may question what I'm saying. But when it comes to us, the difference between shame and guilt is this. If we do something guilty, we feel bad about doing it. You know, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have got mad at you, Mark. I shouldn't have been able to call you those names. And that guilt can kind of help us. That negative feeling can make, next time, think about it, John. Don't say those things, because see how bad you made Mark feel, how bad you made yourself feel. Where if I did the same thing and I felt shame, it's like, you know why you called Mark those names, John? Because you're an idiot. You're a horrible person. Shame comes back on us where we can't help it because we are this way. And in some ways, shame doesn't allow an opportunity to change, where guilt can say, guilt can be sort of a measure of to help us, remind us to be a better person, where shame is, you can't be better because that's just the way you are. And it's generic, it's kind of macro more than micro, but basically that's the attitude that I share with people to understand why shame can be such a detrimental force that it controls. There it is right now. I can't change. Why? Because I'm that way. And shame wants us to feel that way. Because again, I'm going to get off on huge tangents, because in my book that I wrote about it covers all these different aspects of shame. But in some ways, I like to put it this way. It used to be the commercial where they'd have a devil on one shoulder and an angel on one shoulder, and they were trying to convince the devils, hey, be this way, and the angel say, no, you can't do that way. Well, shame is like having a devil on one shoulder and nothing on the other. But this devil isn't really a devil. It's something that you've created. But you don't understand. You've given it power, and it doesn't want to lose power like everything else, because if it loses power, it's going to go away. So it makes you believe these things about yourself so that you stay in this position, so it can stay. It's almost as if it's a different entity. And again, this is my case. It may not be the case for everyone, but it helped me understand that this is the issue, and this is what I need to overcome.
First, I just have to say, wow, because I'd never thought about what I now take to be the insidious nature of shame, the way I now do, thanks to your explanation. And it seems to me that shame, it feels like this circular thing. Shame actually makes us an agent in our own shame, because it doesn't want to lose its power over us. And the only way that it can retain its power is if we go along with it. Yeah.
And we have to in order to overcome it, we have to admit it. Now we feel bad. We have this adverse feeling toward it, because we don't want to think of ourselves as bad necessarily. We like to, well, it wasn't my fault. I was in the situation and I had no choice, kinds of things. I mean, when I was in this organization, my whole idea was, I want to do whatever I need to do to get to heaven. So I need to listen to my spiritual leaders, and whatever they told me, they're godly. I'm going to listen to them because I want to get to heaven. And in a sense, I gave up my responsibility. I gave up my liability for my own actions. And so there's so many crazy ways. Shame is although it's sort of it's rampant, it's all over. We also deal with it in our own unique way, where somebody may not deal with it in the same way that I do. And here's another thing with shame. It has a wide range of emotions, everything from the feeling of complete unworthiness to total arrogance. Why are people arrogant? One of the main reasons is because they don't want you to know how poorly they feel about themselves. So they're bragging, they're overstating things because they don't want you to know really deep down inside how they feel about themselves. And for me, a narcissism, where it breaks that point, is they've totally convinced themselves that they don't have this shame that that brought them to that point. So that's just another kind of clarification.
So again, if you don't mind, how did that lead to the dissolution of your first marriage?
The whole idea of listening to my leaders, the spiritual people, giving up my own idea, my own identity, my own self in many ways. When I left the organization when I was 29, I didn't realize that kind of thinking still sort of held on to me, was controlling my way of thinking. So when I met my first wife, she had 3 kids, triplets, by the way. I was actually coaching them. That's how I met her. So now, instead of giving this power to these spiritual people, I was giving that power to her. Tell me what I need to do to be a good father. I don't know. I've never been a father. Tell me what I need to do to be a good husband. So I gave up all these things. And in doing so, it kind of killed the mutuality in the relationship. It put me in a position that, again, I'm not blaming her so much, of where I wasn't myself. And the marriage did not feel like an equal. And it's not really important to get into the details of how things were, but when I started therapy, and first it was joint therapy, we had a few sessions together, and I really felt like I was progressing. And finally, when she said, I know you better than Shannon. He doesn't know you like I do. You haven't made any progress. And at that point, I was like, okay, I have to take this to myself. And things were over, and I started, look, I have to take responsibility. And all these issues that were from the church when I was younger. Like, do you mind if I have time to tell a quick story?
Yeah, I was going to say to you earlier, there are no tangents on this program. It's all conversation. So
okay,
please go ahead.
One of the biggest impactful stories of my life was 14 years old, and we were at a camp up in the mountains. It was a football camp. It was before the school year started, and the founder of the organization, whom I refer to in my book as the Oracle, because I literally believed every word out of his mouth, from God's lips to his. I mean, when he spoke, it was God talking to me. And there was this. We had just finished working out, and we're on the locker room taking a shower, and it was up in the mountains, so it's all humid. And I don't know why I was singing the song from Fiddler on the Roof, Matchmaker, Matchmaker, make me a match. And this guy pulls out one of the Ohio blue tip strike anywhere matches, and he hands it to me. So I take it, I rub it on the wet floor, thinking it's not going to work. I strike it, it strikes. I walk over to the faucet, douse it in water, throw it in the trash. It's all over. Well, again, this is a religious school. The next day we had our daily devotional period, and this Oracle says, "What are you trying to do? Burn down the forest?" He was somebody had told him that I had lit this match. I don't know what he knew, but here's God telling me, "What's wrong with you? Are you trying to burn down the forest?" So I'm thinking like, wow, I'm a horrible person, but I wasn't trying to do that. But I can't argue with God, because how can you argue with God? So I was in this state of confusion, this horrible self-loathing. You can't even figure out what's wrong with you. And you can see how emotional I am now. I'm at the point now where when I tell that story, I get this way because that was after that moment. I was always captain, always president of the class. But after that, nothing. I really feel like that had a big, huge impact. And when I was talking to my therapist one day, the light went on when I realized, John, it wasn't what the Oracle said to you that caused the damage. It was that you accepted, you believe what he told you. Now, I look back at that 14-year-old and say, you really didn't have a choice. Because you really believed it was God talking to you. I mean, I could have said no, but there was no way. I just couldn't. That's the way I had built myself up. So the healing came when I was able to forgive that 14-year-old boy for believing those things. Because I honestly, firmly believe that if he were alive today and I confronted him, he would say, I didn't do anything wrong. I was telling the truth. And it does no good for me to forgive him. And we'll talk about forgiveness later, because that's a big part of the healing. I had to forgive me. Would I forgive him? Sure, but he wouldn't accept it. And it doesn't really matter. But when I forgave myself, that was when the whole thing started. When the therapist helped me realize that it's not what other people say, it's the fact that you believed it, that you make that a part of who you are. And that was where the light came on at 53 years of age.
Is there a difference between in a situation like that, between forgiving yourself and coming to understand that you had not done anything wrong? If you had not done anything wrong, and I don't believe you did, why would you have to forgive yourself?
I forgave myself because it changed the way people perceive me. It changed things moving forward. When I became an adult and realized that wasn't my intent, I was angry and maybe a little bit bitter. And that's why sometimes people get stuck in these, I'm an alcoholic because my dad beat me. Now, again, I don't want to put anything down. I'm not speaking for anybody else. But when we when we take something and you know why I'm this failure because of this, because of the way I was treated. Now, those are all things that contribute to it. That was tough for a 14-year-old boy to go through. And I may not have been able to do anything about it at the time, but as an adult, I got to take responsibility for my actions. I got to take responsibility for what I believe and not say, well, you know why my life was all screwed up because of what he did that particular day. So that forgiveness was, in my case, was very important for me to move forward.
Yeah, and I believe, I was going to say I think, I'm going to say I believe, that there has to come a point, if we accept the notion that I posited at the beginning, that precious few childhoods are trauma-free.
Yeah.
There has to come a point, I believe, at which you do have to take responsibility, not for what happened to you or for what might have been done to you or said to you, et cetera, but for the fact that if you do it right, you have an adult life to lead. And in leading that adult life, you can't be lugging that traumatic childhood stuff around with you, because it gives you a reason, if not an excuse, to not live the adult life that you should be responsibly living. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
There again, because there's so many levels of emotional hurt. When it comes to emotional healing, I use a lot of references to physical healing. We have a cut, a scrape, we put a Band-Aid on it. How do we know it's healed? Because we take the Band-Aid off and it's no longer there, right? Then we have maybe an injury, we need stitches. Maybe we have what's a broken arm where we need a professional to set it right. Maybe we have an amputation where we have a whole team of people and we have therapy for maybe for a long time. But we've heard of people who've had burns all over their bodies who've learned to thrive. People who've lost limbs who've learned to thrive. Okay, so in the emotional situation, let's start with the horrible. Maybe somebody was physically abused for much of their childhood, sexually abused for much of their childhood. Okay, now I'll tell you what makes my blood boil, and I want to smack somebody in the face when I hear that. Well, the first thing you need to do, little boy, that was raped every day of your life, for 3 years, is forgive your abuser. No, that's the worst thing you could tell somebody. Now, why should that person forgive themselves? They didn't cause that abuse. They weren't the ones doing that to themselves. They were just a victim in the wrong situation. This is the question that I ask. How many times did you ever say, wow, did I do something to deserve this? Is God punishing me because of the person I am? Those are the things that we need to forgive ourselves for. And it's not easy. That's why, again, this is one of those things where it might take, time. Time does not heal all wounds. Don't just let me get that straight. But sometimes wounds take time. When you have an amputation, you just can't stop the bleeding and then continue on with life. There's going to be years of therapy. And if that's the case, if you had an extreme emotional trauma that could be similar to an amputation or 60% of your body having third-degree burns, it's going to take a while. And remember, our little cut that we knew, we know it's healed, it's not there anymore. If you get a scar, that's never going to go away. Well, the scar can become a reminder of how strong you've become. And those are the kinds of attitudes, it's really cognitive behavioral therapy based, of more of a mindset. Again, it doesn't always take into consideration certain things that are caused by chemical imbalances, and there are. A lot of times there are people who have issues because they're chemically imbalanced. Well, they do need to take medicine. And again, I haven't studied in that field, but I've worked with people. I've worked with this one lady in particular from Belgium. And after my first session, she says to me, wow, I've learned more in this one session than I've spent thousands of euros in meetings. And it's because again, I won't be able to relate with everybody. I understand that. But those who, who feel shame and want to know that, how can I come over that? How can I heal from that? Those are the people that I really, you can see, I want to help them. I mean, I would do it full time for nothing. I enjoy it. There's nothing that I enjoy more than somebody going, that light goes on and they understand, where now they look back at themselves. I can empower myself. I can help this. Again, it's not always an easy step, just like healing. All our cuts aren't all little abrasions that can heal just a little bit. There even sometimes that somebody thinks about my little story with the match. What's the big deal? You weren't trying to burn down the forest. It was a big deal to me. It was huge. And my therapist helped me walk through it 40 some odd years later. But again, I try never to take anybody's trauma, anybody's shame, anybody's healing journey with light. I always be careful, and I always try to get them to understand that they're in control of their journey. But you know what? You can still get a Sherpa to lead you the wrong way to top Mount Everest. So we need to be mindful. I mean, I'm thankful that my therapist was there, because I used to tell him, I said, Shannon, you're either awful lucky or you're a genius. And he would say, sometimes I think I'm both. But it was really enlightening. And I was able to come up with these crazy, wacky theories. And I'd say, Shannon, I got to run something by you. And because PhD, he had all really a lot of knowledge in psychology, that he would say no. And he would confirm these crazy notions that I would have about healing and shame and other areas of emotional trauma.
Okay, perfect timing. I would like to take our first commercial break right now. We will come back. We will be gone for 3 minutes, and we'll see you then.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life from any circumstances a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brands, distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
This is Dreamvision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back. John, you said earlier that you wanted to come back and talk about forgiveness.
Yeah.
But I would like to bounce something off you and get your thoughts about this. You also said at one point earlier that guilt and shame are often conflated. And I think you explained persuasively to me how and why they're quite different. But I want to bounce one more, I'll call it another conflation off of you. And this has actually happened to me twice. And that is the difference between guilt and hope. And I'll tell you what I mean as quickly as I can. In the first instance, I was having a conversation with my psychiatrist. And it was at a point at which my mother, who was always, let's just say, a rather difficult character, was starting to slip into dementia and was exhibiting some of the classic characteristics of that: paranoia, belligerence, and sometimes aggression. So I was struggling with whether Anne and I should try to include my mother in our holiday celebrations. And I said to my psychiatrist, the challenge is that I know she's just going to take all the oxygen out of the room and make everybody miserable. And my psychiatrist said, Mark, do you know what's wrong? And I said, no, I don't. And she said, you can't let go of your, and I was completely convinced the next word was going to be guilt. But she said, you can't let go of your hope. And I was completely taken aback. And she said, you think you can make it better, but you can't. More recently than that, in fact, it's ongoing, I have a friend. He's a guy I've known for 65 years. He's now in a nursing home. He's suffering from cancer, which may or may not be treatable at this point. I don't think anybody knows. And when I found out he was there, I went to see him with hope. When I first recognized my hope, I thought, wow, maybe that's actually control. And then when I realized what the situation was, I realized, you know what? I'm going to have to let go. I'm going to continue to be his friend. I'm going to continue to visit him, but I have to completely detach my own expectations from this. And in a conversation about that one day, a woman said to me, you feel guilty about that? No, I don't. I feel it's a challenge to let go of my hope, but I don't feel at all guilty about that. So have you ever thought about the relationship between guilt and hope?
Not until you've really mentioned it. I mean, I can see where in the situation with your mother, that how it was sort of an awakening to you. Because I think the guilt only comes from the hope, from the expectations of the hope. Because if the hope weren't there, there wouldn't be any guilt.
Ooh. Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So it's in that, with the hope versus the guilt, that would seem very situational. You've had two situations, but I would imagine there's a lot of situations where you had hope for a client, expectations for a new client, for a friend, whatever, and they came true. There was no chance for any guilt. So I think in your situation, just thinking and pondering all that is benefit. It's not a waste of your time, because I think it explains to yourself, it gives you a better idea of who you are. So it's not a bad thing to question it, or when your therapist says in those situations, when she says something and you're expecting something else and she throws a curveball at you, that's good, because now here's a chance for self-growth. So
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with contemplating that, but I don't see a continual situation where hope and guilt are intertwined in every circumstance.
Okay, thank you. Points well taken. And I consider, well, my whole life is an evolution, right? But
Yeah.
but I consider this evolution in my thinking to also be one of learning. So I have no inclinations whatsoever to shy away from any of that.
Right.
And I know I will continue to learn from that. So I appreciate what you just shared. I do want to give you the opportunity to say more about forgiveness.
Okay. When I had this whole shame awakening, this is going to be funny, because it was February 22nd, 2013. This was what I call my Independence Day, because the whole thing came to light. It's like the light turned on. And so when I finally realized this whole thing was shame, I remember saying to my therapist, I can't believe it took me so long. And the next breath was, and there it is. Shame's already trying to get me, because I had like this awakening of shame, and then there I'm putting myself down. You stupid jerk! It took you that long, and then, but I saw that. Wow! I just had this, this glorious moment, and I was trying to beat myself up for it. And what gets us past? What gets us through? Healing, right? In fact, my book is called Shame on Me, Healing a Life of Shame-Based Thinking, because what good does it do if we know and understand all this information about shame and we can't process it? We can't become more self-empowered. And before we can really empower ourselves, we got to heal from that. If you got an injury from doing a workout, you can't keep working out. You got to let it heal. Then you can start getting it stronger again. And I think in many ways that works with our emotional situation. So the whole idea is healing. And for me, forgiveness, especially when it comes to forgiving ourselves, is a huge part of that. Now, I don't always like to go into a lot of to a generic, to a macro type talking about healing, because you can really, like I say, if somebody's been abused all this time for years and years, you got to forgive yourself. Why would they not be angry at me? What do you mean? I didn't do all this stuff. I wasn't the one. And you got to really be careful. I had a conversation once with this was probably about 7 years ago. My kids just turned 44, and this girl happened to be their age. But so she was in her late 30s, early 40s. And I said, I just don't want to go there because it's hard. She goes, no, you need to do it, because she knew me on that level. So I asked her the question: how many times did you ever think it was your fault, or is God? Why is God punishing me for? Is this something that I did? And immediately she just stopped, and wow, I get it. And because let's just say, for instance, this oracle guy that that when I forgive myself, I gotta get his forgive. No, I'm not going to forgive you, John, because I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to ask you. Then now your whole life is stuck at this I can't move on because I got to get forgiveness. You can't allow other people to stop you from living a life, from empowerment, from living a life of peace, happiness, wherever you want to put that. Now, there's been a lot of situations where people have had injury, maybe a loved one murdered by somebody, murder, suicide. They can't get the answer. And they really, really, really want to know, right? I can't move on till I know. You've just locked yourself in the box. Now, again, that's easy for me to say because I'm not in the situation. From my personal experience, I had a tough personal experience. We won't talk about that now. You and I will discuss it later if you'd like to. But there are the situations, and I can't condemn somebody and say, well, you're your own worst enemy because I haven't walked in their shoes. But I would be willing to bet there's going to have to be some measure of learning to accept that there is no answer. When I tell people, be okay with yourself, be okay that you've made that mistake. And if you're not okay with yourself, be okay with not being okay with yourself. And if you're not okay with not being, then be okay with not being. And because we have to get to this thing where we stop the self-doubt, the self-loathing, the self-condemnation, because that is going to be the foundation of the issues of our problems, of keeping us stuck in the situation where we can't grow. Believe me, I would hate to have been in a situation where I don't know what that answer is, because you want to know. These people that have missing relatives, and I understand that. But and maybe somebody thinks it's okay for my life to be on hold till I get an answer. I don't know. That they might. I can't tell them they're wrong because I'm not in their shoes and I'm not their counselor or therapist. But life is tough. It's very tricky, and many times, as you know, we need someone to help us walk through those. And I'm sure you have a good partner. I got a great partner that helps us, because no matter how tough it seems that they are on us, they only want our best interest is what they want, and they're only doing it to help us. And it could be hard. It could be very, very difficult. So,
I watch a lot of true crime programs. I don't know why that stuff fascinates me so much. And it's funny you should say what you just said about losing a loved one and not knowing what happened. And I hear people talk a lot about giving themselves permission. Well, I'm going to give myself permission to forgive myself. I'm going to give myself permission to let such and such go. In a situation like that, do you think people might start to rationalize and say, oh, wait a minute, if I'm going to give myself permission to let myself off the hook, am I letting something go? Is that irresponsible of me? And might that then cause guilt for someone who decides to let something go?
There's so many dynamics. Remember that one time I made a comment to you about how our life experiences brought us to different conclusions, different answers.
Yes.
And it's gonna be the same thing. That's why a therapist has to sit and talk to somebody and understand and get their background, because as you and I both know, our childhood really has a big impact. And if people don't understand that, I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I think they should take a second look. So when a person gives themselves permission, I feel like that's typically a good thing. Could it be a bad thing? It can always turn into something. I mean, not always. There's always a chance of it turning into something that's not productive or harmful, because we don't know what the situation is before, and we don't know what the outcome was. It's like a child. How many times has one person raised somebody who's just been this stellar kid, and another one, let's just say, not so stellar? And the parents did the same thing, and parents will blame themselves. We just there are just so many factors in every situation that it's hard. It's like with mental illness. And I asked my therapist this once. One of the things that I don't like about it is people will pigeonhole themselves. Say, I have depression. I'm in this particular, thing. Well, now they look up depression, all these symptoms, and they feel like they are confined to go through these steps. No, they're not. It's you yourself. It's your own journey. So that, now we have to have those things because we need to know as a direction, hey, what is the mental issue you're dealing with, all these things. So that they need to be there, but I would caution people, look at everybody's not a textbook case, and remember that, because that will help you, that could be very beneficial in healing some things moving forward.
I agree. Here's what I'd like to do. Because our first segment ran a little bit long, I would like to take our second break at this point, and then we can come back and get into this a little more. And I also want to make sure that people know where they can find you and where they can find your book. So we'll be right back after this break.
All right, thank you.
Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality.
Where potentiality meets reality.
Where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on Dreamvision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brand's distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told. And the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dreamvision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back for our third segment. You suggested something to me, John, at the end of the last segment when you were talking about parents and their influences on us and forgiving them. Do you think it's helpful, or do you think it's just rationalizing to recognize, and I don't mean just say, but to recognize that in all likelihood, and I grant that there are exceptions, necessarily so, but to grant that they were probably doing the best they could with what they knew and from the experiences of their own lives up to the point that they were our parents. And I'll just share this one example. Things in my relationship with my father changed for the better when I realized that I had no idea what his demons were and had even less control over them than he did. What do you make of that?
I think that was very big of you to do, because I even parents who don't do a good job, I think if you ask them, they're doing the best that they could have done. It doesn't excuse bad behavior, because again, like you say, what were the demons? What were the background? What were their parents? And like there's so many situations. Were they in a situation where they didn't want to have a child? And I'm not saying this in your situation. So now they're already starting off begrudgingly raising a child. You know, sometimes people change. Oh, this is a beautiful little child, and they change. Again, but I would say in your situation or anybody's situation who can understand that their parents had these demons or these defaults, whatever you want to call them, and again, it doesn't excuse their behavior, but in a sense, it really changes you. And when you change, you can help that relationship change if the other person wants it to. Granted, you may have to compromise, in your situation, you may have to, I'm making this up, not bring up things about your dad or say certain things or comment on it. You may have to do that because overall it keeps a closeness going. There maybe have been a situation that really made you angry, but you don't bring it up because it's more important to have the relationship than to say, hey, you know what, you really messed me up on this one. So again, that's a compromise. That's a choice that you make for the greater good of the relationship. But I think in that situation, you're also aware enough to not allow that situation to keep you stuck in this mire and not help you grow. I in your situation, I'm pretty sure that's a true statement.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll tell you two things. One, I'm the second of four, so I don't think it was a matter of my parents not wanting to have children. And I would also say, in fairness to my dad, yes, as I discovered, he did want that, and he was very much receptive to it. At this point, because I want to be certain we don't run out of time, please tell folks how they can find you. Please remind me again of what the name of your book is, and I will tell you that when I share recordings of this program, which will take place before the end of this week, I will include whatever relevant links you would like me to include in your book. So,
I appreciate it very much. The name of my book is Shame on Me, Healing a Life of Shame-Based Thinking. And it can be found on my website, which is shamedoctor.com. And it comes up, it's pretty easy to see, thing comes up by the book.
So I have to ask you, given the business I'm in, which is marketing and brand management and such, did you have a difficult time getting shamedoctor.com, or was that available to you the first time you searched for it?
It was available. I grabbed it.
Wow. There is, sorry, this is tangential to be sure, but there's a gentleman who founded a place called the Graduate Institute here in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember the year he did it, but the URL that he was able to get for that was learn.edu. If he ever decides to sell that, I can't even begin to imagine what that might be worth, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah.
John, this has been one of the fastest programs that I've ever been able to do. I thank you very much. I already respected and admired you before this conversation. I respect and admire you even more now. And I have to tell you, I love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
And when you talked about your moment in therapy, when all the lights went on, I saw and felt you getting lighter. Somehow you managed to even share that, the feeling of that experience. So
thank you. Thank you.
I very much appreciate that.
I really appreciate what you said. That means a lot to me too.
All right. Well, I look forward to staying in touch with you, and we may just do this one again.
That would be great.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I thank everybody for tuning in today. I will be back in 2 weeks with our next program.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe.